Okay, so before we begin, I'll try to remember to announce this at the end also. No shiur on Thursday night next week and no shiur on Friday morning next week because of Thanksgiving. So yeah. Okay, so we are up to Avos 3.5. In some editions, this is 3.4. Maybe some editions is 3.3. I'm not sure. And as usual, we have our standard text of the Mishnah, and then we have the supposedly more accurate edition of the Mishnah. And in this case, there's going to be one small but extremely important difference. Okay, so Rabbi Chanina ben Chachinai, or Chanania ben Chachinai, depending on how you say it. Rabbi, let's say Chanania ben Chachinai. I feel sorry for those like non-Jews who can't pronounce the ch sound for this name. Chachinai says, Haneur Balayla. Okay, anyone want to try translating Haneur Balayla?
Maybe one who lights.
I couldn't hear both voices. Someone go first. Go ahead. So anyone. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, I'll just go.
All right.
No, talk to each other.
Okay, like sorry. I was gonna say maybe one who lights a light at night.
Oh, so this is with an ayin, not related to or.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Like the familiar, I guess, I don't know, his oriri, like in
like waking up.
Yeah. So here's the difficult thing, and even I don't know how to translate this. And I think even the Mefarshim don't necessarily know, because I think there's some debate. So one who, let's just say, who is awake at night, okay? And the other option would be one who wakes up at night, or the other option would be one who stays awake at night. Okay, so like leave this loose in your mind in terms of the exact translation here, okay? V'hamahalech b'derech yachidi, and one who walks alone on the path, on the way. Okay, now the standard version of the Mishnah says, V'hamefane libo levatala. So first of all, just how would you translate that? It's also difficult language. Mefane libo levatala.
One who turns
and one
his heart to vatala, nothingness.
Okay, to nothingness. Okay,
wasting.
So, yeah, nothingness. That's a good literal translation. So mefane. So this is another one that I'm not entirely confident in my my grammar, because mefane definitely can mean to turn. So for example, like al tifnu el ha'elilim, don't turn to the false gods. But mefane can also mean to empty. Okay, like to empty his heart or his mind for nothingness. And I think as we get in the context, we'll see the levatala is what do you call? We might have a better English translation for that. Okay. Now I mentioned that there's one small but important detail. Okay, what's the difference between v'hamefana libo levatala and umefana libo levatala?
I guess it depends whether or not it's its own person or if it's part of the last one.
Okay, yeah. So the question is, this is the way to think about it: is the Mishnah listing 2 cases or 3 cases? Okay, the way our Mishnah has it is haner balayla 1, v'hamahalech b'derech yachidi 2, v'hamefane libo levatala, and a 3rd case. Okay, but the way the other Mishnah has it, version has it is haner balayla 1, v'hamahalech b'derech 2. Oh, it doesn't even say yachidi. That's interesting. Umefane libo levatala, and turns his heart to nothingness, is either qualifying both of these or it's qualifying the second one. But either way, there would only be 2 of them. Okay. So yeah, so I'm going to put that in brackets. Okay, so it's unclear, and you'll see the Mefarshim actually like bring down both versions. Okay, so harizeh mischayev b'nafsho. Behold, how do you say the zeh mischayev b'nafsho?
Is liable.
Sorry, it's coming to me. I've seen it like an article translation.
Why does this never happen in any other shiur? I feel like this never happens if people talk to it at the same time, which is funny. Yeah. So what are we saying, Ayala?
he's like liable or obligated. I forgot which one is Shabbos and which one is not Shabbos. Like
yeah, no, but chayiv can mean liable or obligated, but I think here liable. He is liable for his soul. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So there's our Mishnah. What are the questions?
I guess, like, why? For any of the cases?
So why?
Like, what's so bad about those cases?
Yeah. Why is a person
I guess
mischayev? Yeah.
Specifically for staying or being awake at night, probably more than the other two.
Yeah.
Is less clear. But
or a ne or a balila. Okay, yeah. Yeah, Lauren?
Also, like, is there any relationship between the three?
Okay. What is the relationship between these 2 or 3 cases, right? And as we often ask, I feel like we ask this in Mishlei more than Pirkei Avos, but is this intended to be an exhaustive list, or are these just examples of, or these examples, I guess? Yeah. Yeah, Ayala?
what exactly are these things? Are the situations, scenarios?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I feel like there's a delay. If there's a delay on my end, tell me and I'll try to like fix it. But I'm sensing that there's a delay. Is that why people are talking at the same time? I wonder if it's on my end. Okay. Hopefully we'll make do. Let me just check my internet. My internet seems to be fine. I don't know what happened. All right. So what do each of these activity? What does each clause mean? What does each clause mean? Okay. What cases is it talking about? Yeah, Tamar.
What does it mean that he's mischayev b'nafsho? And I guess specifically, like, does it mean he's literally chayev misa according to halacha, or does it mean something else?
Okay, so what does mischayev b'nafsho mean? Does this mean literally chayev misa? Figuratively, something else? And by the way, I'm going to show you just to because this is going to come up in a few mishnayos. Let me show you in a few mishnayos. We have another thing which says, where is it? Yeah. Okay. So this is kind of a harsh one. This is in 3:7. Rabbi Shimon Omer Hamahalach B'derech, one who's walking on the way, B'shona, and he's learning or reviewing, Umafsik mi mishnaso, and he interrupts his learning of Omer and says, Ma na'i ilan zeh, how beautiful is this tree? Ma na'i nir zeh, how beautiful is this plowed furrow? Ma le'alav hakasuv ki'ilu mischayev b'nafsho. The pasuk considers it as though he is liable for his soul. Okay, so that the fact that it uses 2 like expressions of like comparison or approximation makes it sound like this case is like literal, like he is liable for his soul, but still, like we certainly we don't get, he doesn't get the death penalty, right? But the question is, what does it mean? Okay, Lauren.
Sorry, brother boy. My question is about the difference in the Mishnah with Hamahalech Baderech, because the first version says Hamahalech Baderech Achidi, and this one says Hamahalech Baderech. And when I was thinking of Hamahalech Baderech Achidi, I was thinking like, going by like a singular opinion or something like that. But Hamahalech Baderech Eminently gives a very different implication of what that means. I guess it's kind of related to the first question, but.
Okay, so you're sorry, just to be clear, you're asking about the difference between the 2 versions of the Mishnah, about the one that says Yechidi and the one that doesn't?
Yeah, I guess are they meaning this? Are they talking about the same thing? Because I guess it's like specific to the Yechidi part gives off a different impression than just like walking on the way and turning your heart astray, as opposed to walking on one way and then turning your heart astray.
The Yechidi qualification seems to be different. Okay, yeah. All right, good question. Yeah, Alex. You're on mute.
Sorry, I clicked the wrong thing. I was like, am I unmuted or not? I was wondering exactly what it means to be liable for your soul specifically.
Yeah.
And then
So
also,
I'm gonna add that to Mishlei Benafsho, and I'll say why use the word soul. Yeah.
and then also, what is it specifically about it being like at night that is bad? Like,
yeah.
if you're someone who can't sleep, you can't necessarily control
Okay, yeah, all right,
that.
good. So that's why this mishnah appealed to me, because of my insomnia issues, which is let's see here. Let's you know what? Let's just break this down into two different questions. Okay, so what does haneor balayla mean, right? What if you can't control your insomnia? Okay, and then what does hamahalech b'derech yechidi mean? Okay, what is the difference between yechidi and not yechidi? Okay, good. Okay, yeah, Ayala.
Question on that question.
Yeah.
About like, what if you can't control your insomnia? Are you able to go up to the first translation for a minute?
Yeah.
Oh, that's the only translation. Okay. One who's awake at night. It sounds like a purposeful awake. Like, can we not assume that the Mishnah is like obviously only talking about like if you're like purposely doing that?
Yeah. Okay. Is it purpose? Is this talking about purposeful wakefulness? Yeah. At night.
But like
yeah.
in general, don't we assume that like it's not talking about the person who's like bishogig or bit onus or something? So like, why would we think that it's saying that you have to do it even if you can't control it or something?
Well, okay. So the question is, I think that question is kind of intertwined with this other question, which is, how does mafana libo levatala qualify? Is that its own case, or does that qualify the other two? Because if it's its own case, fine. But if it's qualifying the other two, then you could have two people who both like are awake at night, and then one of them is mafana libo levatala and the other one is not. So like, you know, what you do while you're awake is in your control. So I'm going to go ahead and add that question here, which is, how do we read hamafane libo levatala? Okay, so is this a third case, or is it qualifying one or both of the other two clauses? Also, what does it even mean? Yeah, Tamar?
Is this like a normal way to do grammar in Hebrew, that you could have like, well, what is my question? It just sounds a little funny to me to have mafana libo levatala qualify both, but maybe it's fine. I don't know. Yeah,
I think I'm trying to think of an example. I mean, okay, there in biblical Hebrew, I know there's a thing. I don't know what this is called in English. I don't know Hebrew grammar or English grammar. There's a thing called moshech atmo v'acher imo, which is when you have like, I just saw that. Where did I see this? Where you have a verb that goes on two objects or two subjects, but it lists it at like I don't have an example. Like, I don't have an example.
yeah. I think maybe it's the and that's throwing me off. Like if it was an adjective, maybe that would be easier to see, but it just I don't know. I mean, this is not a real question because I'm not an expert in grammar. I'm just wondering if it's like
So let's just take it that it's a legitimate move, and it's normal. Yeah, Ayla.
Sorry, still on the question before on part one. Is there a havamina, just like a methodology question? Is there a havamina that even if you can't control your insomnia, this would still happen? Like, because it's Pirkei Avos and it's Hasidim, maybe?
Let me actually ask that as a separate question on all of them, which is I'll put this at the end here. Okay, which is, what is the hava amina in the here? Okay, Like why, like, why might a person think that they are not mischayev benafsho for doing these things? Yeah, and we can extend it to each of them. And I see what you mean by, if it might be a different havamina if you say that this is a involuntary or voluntary. Yeah, Tamar.
I guess also in the question, in the context of like Pirkei Avos, are these like really bad things, or are these like, if you're a great person, then you should do this as chayiv mitzvah?
Yeah. Okay. So let's say how does the context of Pirkei Avos, or how should the context of Pirkei Avos influence our reading? Okay. For example, is mischayev benafsho really like actually not that bad, but we're using hyperbole because these are high level people? Yeah. Okay, good question. Okay, I feel like those are the main questions. And I'm going to say at the outset here, I have 3 approaches that I want to do, 4 depending on how you count it. And the interesting thing I find here is that they are all interesting ideas, but I'm very curious. On this Monday, our Monday night Mishlei shiur, we had a discussion about like the chiddush threshold. There's like in Mishlei, then there are certain ideas that for a beginner in Mishlei would satisfy them, but like for me, I kind of like demand more out of the pasuk in Mishlei, because I feel like Mishlei is teaching more than this basic idea. So in Mishlei, I have a very, very honed intuition for that. Here in Pirkei Avos, I really don't. So like, I'm not exactly sure, like, okay, is this the type of idea that Pirkei Avos teaches, or should we be demanding more? So I'm curious to see how our intuitions are going to like take the ideas here. Okay, so before we do that though, I guess anyone want to try to answer any of these questions? I don't know if I can fit them all on the screen. Okay, sorry if it's really small, but yeah. Or anyone have an idea? I mean, I think the overall question has to be like, what is the main idea of the Mishnah? Like, what's the subject of the Mishnah? And then that'll explain the particulars. What does it seem to be about? Oh, I think we forgot a question. Oh, no, we didn't. Yeah. Yeah, Lauren?
I don't know, an idea that's been coming to me is like wasting time, like
Yeah.
maybe like staying awake at night purposely, wandering off, just putting your mind on endless things, that not using your time productively.
Okay. Yeah. And in the context of, do you have anything specifically in mind in terms of the type of productivity that we'd be discussing?
Maybe like, I guess it could be anything that's like purposeful. Like, I guess like, if you're like going to sleep, it's not waste of time, because your body needs sleep. So maybe it's like all in service of Hashem, but I'm not really seeing that in the pasuk exactly.
Okay. So I think maybe a clue that you can take this from is what would warrant the statement of mischayev benafsho, that you're liable for your soul. Right? Like, for example, you're not going to say that like if you could be knitting a sweater, which is productive, and you're not knitting, then you're mischayev benafsho. I don't think anyone would say that.
Maybe it's phira, or I don't know, false ideas.
Sorry, say it again.
Phira or false ideas. I don't know.
So it's interesting. One of the approaches that we're not doing, I mean, we could experiment with it afterwards, is the Rambam says that this is about thinking thoughts of heresy. I have no idea where he gets that from. I mean, except for the mischayev benafsho part. But you'll see if we do the Rambam at the end, then it's just like I have no idea where he gets it from. But yeah, that would be based on mischayev benafsho, that'd be a logical guess. Yeah, Alex.
I don't know how much of a stretch this is, but by including the idea of like walking on a path and turning your heart to nothingness at night gives me the idea of like people going out at night doing unsavory things as opposed to being in their houses. Okay,
yeah. So this is an interesting thing. I can't remember if I saw anybody who merged the first two together. I think the Rambam actually might merge the first two together, that you're awake at night and you're going out on like walking alone at night. Yeah, that sounds sketchy already, right? Yeah, but I think most people take it as the first two are two separate clauses, two separate cases. Which still, you might still be able to say what you're going to say, but I think they are two separate ones. Okay, so let's look at Rבינו Yona, and I'm going to combine Rבינו Yona with Sforno, okay, because I think they're, even though there are differences, I think they're in the same camp. Okay, so Rבינו Yona says, I'm going to go ahead. I like reading in Hebrew better, even though I put the English on the screen and I translated the English. Okay, Rabbi Nechuni ben Hakana, so he takes a different person. Omer haner b'layla v'hamhalach b'derech v'hamafana libo levatala. So it sounds like he. Actually, I'm not sure if this is an accurate Dibur HaMaskil. Let's see. Because these are favorable hours. Okay. Ein lo lachshov bahen or lachashev behen ki'im b'dvarim ritzuim lifnei macham. You should therefore only use them to think about things that are favorable before God. Elu divrei Torah. And what are these? These are words of Torah. Okay. So to answer my question, I think Lauren is on the right track. But Rבינו Yona is saying specifically it's for Torah. Osan shaos kamahem chashuvos ru'uyos lamachshavas Torah. How important and proper fit these are for thoughts of Torah, these hours. Ki lo malacha lasos, you don't have any work to do. Ve'inenu shemea kolos b'nei adam, and you don't hear the sounds of people. Okay, v'im yifana libo levatala mischayev benafsho. If you turn your heart to, I translate it as idleness. Okay, like because nothingness kind of like sounds like Zen meditation, so I don't think it means that. So if you turn your heart to idleness, then you're liable for your soul. Why? Shemafsid zehazman. Okay, now I want to just call your attention to something. So again, I'm big, you know me, I'm big into correct versions of text. So I used two versions of Rבינו Yona. The first time I used it, it was an incorrect version. It was a less accurate version, and it said your mischayev benafsho shemafsid zman, because you are wasting time. But the accurate version of Rבינו Yona says shemafsid zehazman, you're wasting this time. And to me, that's like very different thing. Like, are we saying anytime you waste time, then you are like mischayev benafsho, or are we saying no, these hours are fit and you're wasting that time? I think that reading is smoother. So you're wasting that time. Bo tucha lios lo machshavah brura unachona. This is a time when you can have clear, good thoughts, but yet you're removing it from thinking about Torah. Okay. So that's Rבינו Yona. And before, Alex, you have a question?
Did they ever clarify exactly how late they're talking? I don't know.
I was actually going to talk about this. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So let's, let me address that point. Because I think this is one of these cases where we really need to take a step back and not project into the past. So I'll tell you an anecdote. Okay, so how long ago was Hurricane Sandy? It just came up in the, was it 10 years or 11 years?
10 years.
10 years ago, yeah. So 10 years ago, there's Hurricane Sandy. So I don't know where all you were, but I was, Far Rockaway had no power. And so I was in West Hempstead for 10 days and then in Cedarhurst for 5 days. And during the 10 days in West Hempstead, we also didn't have power. Okay. And it was October, right? And what I remember happening was like, October, it gets dark at like, 5:36. What happened was like, and we had to use like candlelight, and flashlights. And what happened was like, everyone suddenly got very, very tired, like shortly after dark, and since this was not just for one day, this was for like, more than a week. I think our bodies like went into what is probably a more normal circadian rhythm for like mankind. Because what happens is we have, artificial light, there are few inventions that changed everything, in terms of the course of mankind. They say that artificial light, it changed things because it made it so that people could be as productive during the night as they are during the day. And so I don't think we have like a proper framework for really assessing what this is talking about. So like, imagine if all the work that you do is in the field, and let's say it's this time of year, and you end work and you come home at like 6, and then like you have the entire night, which is a much longer time than we have. We work or do stuff until late. Oh wow, there's so much honking outside. I don't know if you guys can hear that. But So much honking outside. Okay. But we end up staying up and working a lot. And then the time that we have that's like distraction free time, if anything, is like into the wee hours of the morning, which is unhealthy, but so the answer to your question, Alex, is I don't know what he's talking about, but for our purposes, it's time when you have no work and people are not distracting you, which for us is very hard because we always feel we could be doing more work. Whereas in the old days, you literally just couldn't be doing more work. You can't go out to the field at night, and also people would not be as distracting, especially when the only people you're talking about are people in your actual vicinity. Yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question, but so we have to kind of like adapt this for our purposes. Yeah, Tamar?
I hear the idea, but I don't understand how he's learning the actual Mishnah.
Okay, hold on for a second. So I do want to pair this with Sforno. Okay, let me just read. Actually, I'm going to read Sforno now, and then we'll analyze both of them. Okay, so Sforno has a slight difference. Okay, and then you might like this one better or the other one better. He says, Hanir B'layla. So first thing he does is he explains the order of the Mishnah, which is interesting, of the Mishnayos. He says, Achar shesidir hamachaber ma'amari morim minis rizus b'shivtecha b'veisecha. After the organizer of the Mishnah arranged statements that teach about like a zeal or alacrity in b'shivtecha b'veisecha, when you're sitting at your house, hainu b'veis midrashecha, which is in your base midrash, uv'mesibos shulchanacha, and at your table. So that's the Mishnah. I guess base midrashecha is in the Mishnah we had of two people who sit together and there are not words of Torah between them. And then at your table is the one we had last week of three people sitting at the table. So then he says, Hizkir ata minis rizus b'lechtcha b'derech uv'shachpacha. So now he continues in the pasuk, which is when you walk on your way and when you lie down. Okay, so that's nice. So he's kind of answering our question about why it chose these two examples, because in the pasuk, which is about learning Torah, it's following the cases that the pasuk in the Shema talks about where you should be learning Torah. Amar im kein ze hachacham. So if so, this chacham says she'ner b'layla, that someone who's awake at night, v'chein hamahalach b'derech kishu yichidi, and when he's walking alone on the way, v'ein imo mi sheyisayehu ledevarim batelim, and there's no one who can distract him for other things. Okay. V'chein hamafane libo, libo mi iske chaye sha'a, and so to someone whose mind is free from worldly dealings. V'yihye echad me'elu itos hapnai levatala, and he uses any one of those times for batala, for idleness. Harzeh mischai benafsho. So the way he's reading is like this: Hanir b'layla v'hamalech b'derech yichidi v'hamafane libo. This tomorrow I think is weird syntax. If you do any of that levatala, if you use it for levatala, for idleness instead of for Torah, harzeh mischai benafsho. You're liable for your soul. Ki amnam kol echad me'elu ha'itim hapnuyim mitirdos hazman. All of these times which are free from worldly occupations, from the pressures of time. B'zeha ofen hu eis lasos l'Hashem. This is a time to act for Hashem. Ulhabit el polo v'toraso, and to gaze at his creation and his Torah. Ulhis bonin bam lahachios es nafsho, and to contemplate them to sustain his soul. Uvihis rashlus az. And if he's lax in those times, then he will be liable for his soul without a doubt. Okay, so let's go. Let me put these both on the page. Oh my gosh, that's going to be too small. Okay, let's go back to Rבינו and Yona. Yeah. Okay, so the question is, how is he reading the Mishnah, right? Let's go back to the Mishnah, actually. So anyone want to summarize what their understanding of this is according to either opinion so far? What's the main message? How is he reading the Mishnah? Yeah, Ayla?
That these are all times when he's at night walking, and I'm not so clear on the last one.
Yeah.
But these are all opportune times where he can think.
Yeah.
But there are also times where you could just slip into, I guess, just being at night, whatever, going to sleep or thinking about other stuff or whatever.
Right.
So he's saying that if you use these opportune times for Torah, which is your real soul and life and whatever.
Yeah.
Then that's good, and that's what you should be doing, I guess. And if not, then it's as if you're wasting this time and throwing away your life, or chayav and offshow. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So I'll just fill in a few of the gaps here, and then we could you can ask questions if we have questions. So I think the way Rבינו and Yona said is these are precious hours, right? So during the day there are all these distractions and there are all these things that could take you away. Here, there's nothing, that you don't have anything to do and you're not being distracted. and therefore it is a rare opportunity. Okay. And if you waste that opportunity, you are literally liable for your soul, because this is the time that you can use to build your soul, and the night part we can understand because there's no distractions. The walking alone is an interesting one, because that to me is like not describe, like what would be an example of walking alone? Like, what do you picture when he says walking alone? Just a common case of this. Yeah, Alex.
I think of like the kind of person that like walks around so they could clear their head and like meditate.
Yeah, exactly. This is like when, not when you're like walking to your car. This is like when you, I mean, maybe when you're walking to your car, maybe that's a precious time. But I think this is like when you're taking a walk, going on a hike, some sort of like thinking time where, again, you're not gonna have anyone to distract you and you're not involved in working on anything, So if you use that time, and then the way the Sforno made it into 3 clauses, and he says for the third one is mefane libo. Let's say you find yourself with like a day off, like let's say like you have a day off of work where you don't have to do anything, then that would be another case where like you suddenly find yourself with free time. Yeah, I saw funny, I saw old, I have Facebook, and they show Facebook memories, and this old Facebook memory from my first year of teaching, when I was teaching only 2 classes at Hafter, and like I posted something about how like there was an assembly, and so one of my classes got canceled, so I got to like finish the last episode of Dexter season 1, which I was watching at the time, and like I was thinking to myself like, wow, when would I ever have free time like in my day randomly again? Like that was a long time ago when I first started, and like now if I had free time, like if I find myself like with one a class that was canceled, like I don't think I would use it for like catching up on a show, like there's times to catch up on shows, but yeah. And I think the Sforno said it the right way, which is it's Mishlei Podcast literally, that like this is a time where you can use it to grow your soul or to deteriorate your soul, and like you are literally like making or breaking your soul. And I think that there's also like an implication here, which is, someone who says, and I'm not saying this like, I'm not naming names. I'm just saying like hypothetically, a lot of us think that we value Torah, right? And we do value Torah, right? But here's the thing is, when you suddenly get a golden opportunity where nothing is taking you away, are you going to Torah or are you going to something else? And look, there are times when you go to something else, but you have to like really ask yourself, like, there's that other mishnah in Pirkei Avos that don't say when I'm free then I'll learn, because maybe you won't be free, right? So that's like one side of the coin. Well, don't say if when I'm free I'll learn, and then when you're free you don't actually learn. Like there's a it's very easy for a person to view themselves as someone who actually values learning and just keeps on like busying themselves, and then never actually seizes the opportunities that are given to them to actually like be involved in learning, So I think that like there's like an introspection point here of like, are you going to be one of these people who fancies themselves someone who like uses their time for Torah and really doesn't? Okay. Any questions, comments, observations?
I'll raise my hand.
Oh yeah, Ayala.
I was just gonna say about the Mahalif Badarach point.
Yeah.
Like I feel like what I was thinking when you were saying walking was that like walking from place to place, like where you need to be. So it's like a time where you really do have free time and you're alone. Or like nowadays, maybe it could be driving. Yeah. Like I find myself on car rides. Like I feel like that's a time where I'm like, am I gonna spend it well?
Okay, yeah, that's actually a good point, right? I use the example of walking to your car in the sense of like a very short like distance, but theoretically that could be used. But yeah, for my example is nowadays most of the time I walk to work, like to yeshiva and back, and I made the decision last year to not listen to anything on the way there or back unless I really need to listen to music, like for mood or clear my head. But I found myself like trying to cram in like other stuff, and even like shiurim. Like there's a difference between when you're just thinking of ideas and like listening to a shiur, and sometimes listening to a shiur could be good. But for me, I found that like it was just a matter of this frantic, like cramming in productivity. And it was better if I like let my mind like leisurely muse over whatever I was walking to yeshiva to teach, and like I ended up using that time. Yeah, so that's a good example. Yeah, Tamar?
I think it might be interesting to try and answer the question of whether, according to this idea, we have an exhaustive list here.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, good. So anyone have an answer to that question? Is this an exhaustive list or is this like categorical somehow? Yeah, Lauren, you have an answer to that or you have a different question?
No, I have a different question.
Okay. So Tamar, do you have an answer to that or you were just posing the question?
I'm mostly just posing the question. I'm not sure.
Okay. So I think I kind of spotted an answer in Sforno. I think. Let me just see if I was hallucinating. No, maybe it wasn't Sforno. Was it being Yona? No. So I think, or maybe this is my own thought, is if you take these as two clauses, there's either ideal times or ideal scenarios. Like ideal times, like on the clock, on the day-to-day schedule, there's times, and then there's like you find yourself without anyone to distract you, so maybe that's categorical, but I don't think this is an exhaustive list. Definitely, I think there are definitely other times when you when you can apply this. Yeah, Lauren.
How does he explain like kind of or Belila? It's like when you're making, or is it like? Because I guess is he saying like at night you should be awake at night and think of ideas? Is that what he's saying?
So I think there's two approaches you could take. Okay, so one, I'm gonna actually read from the Rambam. I should have gotten the source here. The Rambam in Hilchos Talmud Torah. So there's this parak in Hilchos Talmud Torah where there's the basic mitzvah of Torah learning, and then there's the thing where he says, there's something called the Keser Shel Torah, which is the crown of Torah, which is the highest level of learning Torah. So he says, most people, you could just do the regular Torah, but if you want the crown of Torah, then this is what you do. Okay, so what he says here is he says, Afal pisha mitzvah lilmod bayom u'valayla, even though there's a mitzvah to learn by day and by night, ein adam lamad rov chachmaso ela balayla. A person only learns the majority of his chachma or the abundance of chachma at night. Lefikach misharata lezakos bekeser haTorah. Therefore, someone who wants to merit the crown of Torah, yizahir b'chol leilosav, he should be careful with all of his nights. V'lo yovad afilu achas man b'sheno v'achilu shasiya v'sicha v'kiyotz man. He shouldn't waste any one of them in sleeping, which we'll get back to in a little while. He does not mean that you shouldn't sleep. You shouldn't waste anyone in sleeping, eating, drinking, or like conversation. Ella b'talmud Torah v'divrei chachma, but in learning Torah and words of chachma. Amru chachamim ein gorna shel Torah ella b'layla. The chachamim say that these gorna, I think, is the like silo, like you only accumulate like a silo of Torah at night. I think that's what it means. Shnemar kumi roni b'layla. It says in Eicha, get up and sing out at night. This is a weird statement. Anyone who is involved in Torah at night, a thread of chesed extends to him during the day. It says, by day, Hashem commands his kindness, and at night, the song is with me, a prayer to the living God. This is a strong statement. Any house of where there's no words of Torah heard in it at night, a fire will consume it. Yeah. Okay. So I gave shiur on this 2 years ago. So if you're interested in that, I can send you the link. I don't remember what we said, but this approach is saying basically that proactively your nights should be designated for learning. If you want this high level of Talmud Torah, again, this is not for everybody, but the high level of Torah, you should set aside all your nights for Torah because, of all these other concerns are not, you don't have any other concerns and like it's precious time. The other approach is if you wake up at night, then you should use that for Torah. And here's where my own experience comes in. Okay. Which is, so let me explain the normal routine here, right? So my night routine, except this year when I have to give shiur late, I usually start my wind down procedures at 9, and I ease into the nighttime thing, dimming all the lights and everything like that, and making my phone go to grayscale, and then eventually turning off the phone, and then doing stuff. And then after I shower, I go into bed and I read fiction because I can't concentrate on nonfiction before I go to sleep. And I usually fall asleep pretty quickly. And then when I have insomnia, the insomnia usually manifests itself as waking up in the wee hours of the night. So for example, last night I woke up at 1:30. Okay. I woke up at 1. I tossed and turned till 1:30. And then I remembered that I was going to be teaching this today. So I got out of bed and I read for about an hour and a half. And I thought to myself, yeah, it is pretty quiet here, and I could be doing two things. I could be in bed tossing and turning and having anxiety about stuff I have to do. And I think those of us who have had anxiety or insomnia know you cannot trust your thoughts at night. Your thoughts blow things out of proportion. You start worrying about stuff that is not really stuff to worry about. So instead of just being a victim to that, I got out and read, and I got a nice amount of reading done, and then I went back to sleep. So that's the other way to take this of if you wake up at night, then you should do this. So either proactively or reactively, I would say. Okay, ready for another interpretation? I think this is the nice straightforward interpretation here. Okay, radically different one now. The Meiri. Okay, Meiri says like this. I'm gonna read this one in. I'll read it. I don't know why I translated it to English. I put it. I guess I could put it on the screen, but I like reading in Hebrew. All right. Hu balahayir ha'adam she'im hemininu heyos kol inyane ha'adam mushgachim im ligmul im le'onesh. He says, even though we believe that everything that happens is through hashgacha, right, whether for reward or punishment, royal adam shlo lifshoa ba'atmo, a person should not be negligent about himself. Uli hizahir min mikrim, and a person should guard himself from chance occurrences. Shehezeg matzui lahem lios behem, where harm is frequent. Okay, v'hizkir mehem, and he mentions of them haneur balayla, someone who stays up at night, kol halayla, who pulls an all-nighter. Okay, he's order yoser midai tazig ma'od. If you're awake for longer than excessively, then that's very harmful. So how long, Meiri, should we sleep? Hashira mugwa l'teoras halayla hu b'kadesh yashlim ba im hios teoris sheish esrei shana shaos v'yashin shmona shaos shem shlish hayom hashlim ratzalam rachav dal shaos. So basically, you should section your day into reserving a third of the day for sleep, which is 8 hours. Okay, which from my understanding, that still is a standard recommendation. I know some people say 7 hours is enough also, but 8 hours. And then for the rest of the day, you have 16 hours, and you should set aside as much as you can for Torah. This is also the Rambam's opinion in Hilchos Deos. He says, and this is the parak about health, Hayom v'halayla arba v'esrim shalos. The day and night together are 24 hours. Dai lo l'adam lishan shlishan. It's enough for a person to sleep for a third of those hours, shu shmona shalos, which is 8 hours. Vihu b'sof halayla, and that should be at the end of the night where you sleep. So you see, by the way, the night is long, right? If you think about it now, right? What sunrise is 6:45 ish. So math. So 10:45 till 6:45 is 8 hours, right? So but yet it gets dark at 5:30. So the night hours that you're learning Torah according to the Rambam really is when it gets dark until 10:45, and then you get your 8 hours of sleep. And actually, sorry, it's not. It's a little bit earlier because he says. So that from the time that you go to sleep until the sun rises is 8 hours, and you get up before Hanetz. Okay, so that's a healthy sleep schedule, and I think that that should still be now. So the reason why I'm reading this from the Rambam specifically is to go back to that statement when he says you shouldn't waste any of your nights in sleep or in eating and drinking. The Rambam is still going to say that you have to get enough sleep. So you're sleeping 8 hours, but then you're using the rest of your night for learning. And again, that's for the highest levels of Torah. Okay, back to the Meiri. Oh yeah, Ayala?
I don't know if this actually is an important question or matters at all, but I feel like you hear stories about Beit Midrashot, in Europe and
Yeah.
like before that of like Rabbeim who would sit all night learning and whatever and like all this
Right.
type of stories. So what do you make of that, I guess?
That's a good question. So there is okay, the Rambam's let me answer from the Rambam's principle. The Rambam at the end of the paragraph about health, at the beginning of the paragraph about health says, Hoil vihios goof. So the kind of this is in Hilchos Deos, which is about character traits, and he just got through saying that a person should direct all of their actions with the goal of having knowledge of God. Okay, and the last example he left off on was sleep, and he says, even when a person sleeps, if he sleeps in order to rest his mind, gufo, and to rest his body, so he doesn't become sick. He cannot serve Hashem when he's sick. Then his sleep will be service of God. And then he says, that's what the Chazal meant when they said all your actions should be for the sake of heaven. That's what Shlomo meant when he said, in all of your ways know him, know God, and he will straighten your paths. And then from there, the Rambam segues into this parak all about health, because he says, since having a healthy body and a perfect body is one of the ways of Hashem, meaning like following a path that leads to service of Hashem. You cannot be involved in knowledge and understanding when you are sick. A person needs to distance himself from things which destroy the body, and he needs to conduct himself in things that make him healthy. So definitely, I don't believe that if a Talmid Chacham sacrifices sleep for Torah learning in a way that is harming their health, physically or psychologically, then I think that would be bad. Okay. And I think it's going to take its toll. We actually did a pasuk about this in Mishlei today, that said, we did this earlier in Mishlei, but we referenced it today. Mishlei has, according to the Meiri, the derech nister, the derech nigle, and the derech nister. The derech nigle is the like overt meaning, which is about decision making, and the derech nister is metaphorical, which is about perfection. So there's a pasuk that says, Al tigzal dal ki dalhu, v'al tadaki ani bashar. Do not rob a poor person because he is poor. V'al tadaki ani bashar, and don't crush a poor person in the gates. Ki Hashem yariv rivam, because Hashem will fight on their behalf. V'kava es kovehem nafish, and he'll steal the souls of those who steal from them. Okay, so plain pshat is it's about robbing from a poor person, but the Meiri says that the metaphorical meaning is it's talking about robbing from either your body / psyche or your intellect. Okay, which is, he says, you have intellectual needs and you have like bodily psychological needs, and you have to give each thing its due. And what's going to happen, and the reason why they're called poor is because they're dependent on you, the chooser, to like provide them with what they need. So if you rob them, so for example, if you like steal from your sleep in order to try to learn more, or if you take time away from your learning in order to like indulge in physical stuff that you don't need, then Hashem will take revenge, which means that the one who designed the body, it's going to take its toll. It's going to have to like come crashing down. You're going to burn out. You're going to shorten your life. Like that's the other crazy thing, right? Like a person can say like, oh, I can do this, I can function, but have you thought about the fact that maybe if you are getting like only 5 to 6 hours of sleep for all of your 20s, maybe you're actually literally taking years off your life, at the end of your life, which you could be using for living and for like learning, So like, I would say that any person who like endangers their health, physical or mental, for learning is not serving Hashem properly. However, there is a thing where you will psychological needs are tough to evaluate, and we sometimes think we need more than we actually do. So it's possible that like a person is at the stage where, let's say like, old people don't need to sleep as much. I think that's like a biological fact, like they don't sleep as much, So when you hear these like old rabbis who are like, only like sleeping for 4 hours a night, and they've mastered their psychological need for sleep, and they don't need that anymore, and they're learning more time, then maybe that makes sense, but I think if you're damaging your body, and that's just a bad management, and God's gonna fight on your behalf. Okay, so that's the Meiri about being awake at night, and he says pulling an all-nighter, but I think it's clear from our discussion, like, it's quantitative. Like, getting 1 hour of sleep is also really bad, even though you're not getting 0 hours of sleep. Okay, then he says, and one who walks alone on the path, which poses a grave danger, since the paths are assumed to have robbers who can attack him easily when he is alone. So back in the old days, traveling at night was really dangerous. I think the most modern analogy now is you would not walk in certain parts of Far Rockaway at night, because it's dangerous. You might get mugged. And one who turns his heart to idleness, that is, he doesn't involve himself in any worldly matter. Okay, which to me sounds like a person who's just like who doesn't, the Hebrew he uses is shlo yisasek b'shum davar ba'olam. Like, he doesn't have a job, he doesn't have a hobby, he doesn't like do anything. Like, he's just like an idler, What happens? Yavu mizeh lidei tardemas leves. I don't know exactly what he means. You're going to come to sleepiness of the heart, v'hishtomu machshavah, and desolation of the thoughts, which I think means like insanity or madness, or like some sort of like a mental disorder. Okay, so very different than Rבינו Yona, right? And Sforno. He's saying that this is all about he's saying three things, right? There's physical danger, physical harm from not caring for your bodily needs. There's physical harm from putting yourself in an externally dangerous situation. And then there's, I think, sounds like some sort of like mental health issue for how you use your time, of just like not using your time like in a way that is like being involved in something, and you find that with people, by the way. Like, there are people who either because they're very rich, or because like they are in they're in a situation in life where, let's say like retirement, where like there are people who retire and they never really cultivated any like solid, intellectual pursuits or hobbies or interests, and then they just don't know what to do with their time, and then they end up like lapsing into early dementia and death, so like I think that might be the thing he's talking about. So according to the Meiri, like, the subject is clear, right? Which is that miskai b'nafshos, you're endangering your like life, not your perfection, your life. But what is is there a havamina here? Yeah, tomorrow.
I wasn't going to answer that question. I was going to say something about the last.
Sure, go ahead.
I just feel like I've had experiences like, like a summer where I didn't have any plans or something like that. And I feel like the Tirdemus Lave sounds like an accurate description of that experience. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Just get like a little spacey like all the time or something.
Exactly. Yeah. You things become dull, and you look, the other thing is, it could be literally Tardemus Lave is like people like will sleep, like they'll just sleep a lot, I think it's also, again, we live in a different world where like we have lots of ways to do stuff that is equal to sleep, like just watching endless like shows or whatever, or like scrolling on whatever your social media poison of choices, something that's equal to sleep. So is there a havamina here? And I think there is in his words. Yeah, Tamar?
I'm not saying that I like get it, but it sounds like he's saying the havamina is that because there's hashgacha, you don't have to worry about these things.
Exactly, right? That's exactly as his havamina is even though everything's by hashgacha, you still have to protect yourself. This reminds me of like that Sefer Chinuch on the on Ma'akeh. Let me see if I have it here. Sefer Chinuch. Ma'akeh. No. All right, but basically he says, I don't have it. I mean, I do have it, but Bing is a horrible search engine. That he says, even though we hold that everything that happens is through hashgacha and nothing happens without the will of God, nevertheless, God created the world based on laws of nature, and like if you fall off a roof, then you're gonna die, and like if you put your hand in fire, you're gonna get burned. So it is interesting that like I don't know if this is talking to a person who fancies themselves like under the hashgacha, because like they're involved in Torah or something like that, or if he thinks that since I'm using my like look, if this is talking to people in Pirkei Avos, they probably are like using their saying, well, I'm using my nights for Torah, like of course God has to protect me from these harms, but no, you could get sick if you're like not getting enough sleep. Or let's say like you're walking alone on the path, like I'm staying in the base midrash really late at night, so I'm coming back like late. God can't let anything happen to me. No, like that's that could still be a cause of danger. So I don't know if that is the Havamina, but that seems to be the what he's starting off with. He's starting off by acknowledging that like you might think that God protects you, but you still have to protect yourself from these things. Yeah.
So his interpretation of turning your heart to idleness is basically being unemployed.
Yeah, being like
getting that.
Yeah, unoccupied, I would say, is the term here, right? Like I mean, it is very vague. He says, "Shelo yisasik b'shum davar ba'olam." You're not involved in anything in the world. I don't think he's talking about like a monk, like in a monastery. So like either unemployed, no involvement like with people. I don't hermit. I'm not exactly sure what he's talking about. There's probably different forms of it. Like what it kind of reminds me of actually is there's a category of people in let me see if I can find it really quickly. I'll find it the easier way. This is not an exact category. In fact, yeah, it's not. This is like the we did the late team from before, not the late team, the mockers, the late team, like the ones who sit in the corners and they don't do anything. They just talk all day. It might be that kind of thing. I'm not really sure what he's talking about. Yeah, Alex.
It makes me think specifically of the kind of people who like don't have hobbies or things to occupy with themselves with. Because then you become a very like boring, uninteresting person.
Yeah.
Without like a lot to influence
like
your understanding of the world.
Your soul atrophies as a person. Yeah. Yeah, Lauren.
Yeah, like two comments. I guess like one thing that came up for me when thinking about this is like how I felt sometimes when on maternity leave or just taking care of the baby. But not like you said, you're not involved in nothing but diapers and poops and feeding schedules all day long. It kind of like dumbs your mind if you're used to like being involved in ideas. But I guess, but then I had to reorient. I guess whatever. There is a purpose to that. So I don't, But the other thing I was gonna say is that so is he saying that the chayiv b'nafsho is that like it's literally going to harm?
I think so.
Body?
I think he's saying nefesh as your life, not your perfection. Yeah. So I like this because it's so opposite of the other approach. It's a nice read. Okay. Last one that I have here is the craziest one. Okay, sounding one. Rבינו Bachya. Okay, he says Chanai ben Chachinai says one who's awake at night. So he quotes Rabbi Yaakov, Rabbi Shimshon, who was an older Rishon. One who's awake at night, even at home, endangers his life because of the mazikim. Okay, now mazikim literally means damagers. People translate it as demons. Okay, so because the mazikim who sometimes show themselves, and a person is in danger if he sees them. Okay, so that's at night. Even alone in your house, okay? And one who walks on the path alone, even by day, since the mazikim that are common at night can be found in the fields even by day. Thus, the sages said, the whole path is presumed to be dangerous, like the whole way. Furthermore, they said, where danger is common is different. As it is stated, how can I go? Shaul will hear and kill me. I think that's a proof that this actually fits in nicely with the Meiri, that's when Shmuel is sent to appoint David as king, and he's going and he's worried that Shaul is going to kill him. And so a person might ask, well, what do you mean? This is Shmuel Hanavi. Of course, God's going to protect him. But you see that he was worried about it because, if you're in a place if you're putting yourself in danger, then like you can't rely on God's protection unless like he specifically promises you, so it fits in with the Meiri also. And one who empties his heart to idleness, that he empties his heart for matters of Torah, for matters of idleness. Behold, he is liable for his soul because each of these situations makes his body vulnerable to mazikim, and the mazikim will encounter him. And needless to say, when he's involved in Torah, which is fundamental and separates from it to nonsense matters, which will make him even more endangered by mazikim and chance occurrences. Okay, and then he says that there's another text that just makes it 2 clauses. Okay, so here he's saying that the danger is these are situations where you have to be careful of these demons. Now, there are, we're not going to go to the whole demon thing right now, but the basic machlokas in Rishonim, whether demons are real actual creatures that like have a physiology and like live in certain places and interact in certain ways. So like say like, the Ramban held that, Rashi held that these demons are actual creatures. Chances are most of Chazal held that, if not, all of them. But then there's also demons that are, they're those who hold that mazikim are not, that there's no such thing as actual demons. Okay, so I wanted to do to you my favorite explanation of what mazikim are. This is from the Meiri, and I didn't have time to translate this, so I'll just translate it from the Hebrew. So he's talking about Kriya Shema al Hamita. He says, Afal pi shekara adam es Shema b'beis HaKnesses, even though a person read the Shema in shul, okay, for Mariv, mitzvah likrosa al mitaso, it's mitzvah to read it on his bed. V'lo al hamita mamish, not literally on your bed, ala samach l'shchivaso, but close to when you go to sleep. Ukmo v'alav mata minashe, okay, he brings a proof that it doesn't need to be on your bed. V'lo al mitaso ki elu shekorim osan derech hedyotus uv'gilei rosh, not like people who are like read it in like an ignoramusy way with their head uncovered. Okay. Ella be'ema v'yira, but for you read it out of awe and fear. The Talmud kriyazo pirshu b'Talmud hamarav, so it explains in the Talmud in Talmud Yerushalmi the reason for this reading, because the nighttime reading at Mariv is to fulfill your mitzvah of saying the Shema twice a day, but the Kriya Shema Amita is lahavriach es hamazikim, to chase away the demons. Okay, now there are people who hold that it actually is to protect you from these like real demons. But the Meiri says, ubi uro etzli, I hold that the explanation is hamazikim hayidum, is the known damagers, v'hem hadeos hakozvim, the false ideas, the hazikikuhu be'itos hapanai, and like being preoccupied by them at times of freedom, liyached es Hashem, uvihis kikuhu, and Chazal required a person be'itos hapanai at his free times, liyached es Hashem, to focus on God's oneness, shlo yite be'emunus hashnius, so that he doesn't err in dualism, okay, believing in two gods. Ukishiyikra al hakavana haruya tehemitaso betucha mehem. And when he reads these the Kriya Shema with kavana, then his bed will be protected from them. Now he's taking mazikim as like false beliefs, okay. And he specifies the false belief in dualism, which is a belief in, Zoroastrianism, I think was the common form in the time of Chazal, which is belief that there's a good God and an evil God. Okay. Any speculations as to why you're prone to that at night on your bed, like believe in a good God and an evil God? Oh, sorry, I didn't realize your hands were up. Yeah, Alex?
This might be a little off base, but there's like a very real like scientific phenomenon of like having like sleep paralysis demons. So I feel like
that's interesting. Yeah.
It makes sense to me that the connection is made there.
Yeah. I bet you that you're right, that people believe that was demons. In fact, I think I know the specific demons. I mean, I think that actually I don't know for sure, but I know that there was a okay, we'll talk about that after shiur. Okay, I don't want to go into talking about this particular type of demon right now, but anyway, yeah, that's an interesting speculation.
Yeah. Also, I have to say, when I first saw the topic of the shiur, I was really curious if there would be one opinion that had to do with shading, because I remember learning a very long time ago when I was really young, something about like, oh, you're not supposed to walk alone at night because shading might get you and stuff like that.
Yep, that's what he's talking about.
I was very amused that it didn't come up.
Definitely. Yeah, Tamar?
In terms of like getting false ideas, I mean, this wouldn't have been how I would have thought to express it, but I guess, I mean, okay, I have to say one thing at a time, but okay, I feel like, I mean, just the basic thing of like at night, you kind of like, your brain isn't working as much and you're kind of like more tired and more anxious. If you're anxious about something, it kind of like whatever's in the back of your mind can just kind of come up without you being so on top of it.
Okay, so that's my interpretation. Okay, not of the Meiri, but I'm kind of using the Meiri as an in for that. That I think if we were to take this metaphorically, which again I think Rבינו Bachya, knowing him, he's in the Ramban's camp. I think he means actual demons. But if we were to take that these statements, there are a lot of statements in Chazal about demons at night. And if we were to take those metaphorically, I think it is talking about your anxieties and your fears, which are harmful to you because, first of all, they ruin your sleep. Secondly, they cause you to think about things in a distorted way. And thirdly, they take you away from like thinking thoughts of Torah, which is what the night should be for, which is, and that harms your soul, and night is a time when like your thoughts tend to go in that direction. Regarding the dualism thing, I mean, what's okay, again, this is Zoroastrianism, I think, was a big religion during, I think, the Persian exile, if I'm not mistaken. What is the appeal in dualism, in believing in a good God and an evil God? Like, where does that come from in the psyche? I don't think it's like that hard. Yeah, Alex?
I mean, it's the idea that if you want to believe in like a just good God, like why are bad things happening?
Exactly.
So it appeals to you in that way.
Right. It's just a very, very basic psychological move of there are good things that happen to me, and then there are bad things that happen to me, and like the bad things can't be coming from the good God, so it must be coming from the bad God, But what it does is it's a very primitive psychological framework, because basically you're judging, you're projecting a dual reality based on what happens to you. Like, the good stuff that happens to me is a good God treating me this way, and the bad stuff that happens is a bad God. It's all based on yourself. And I think it is easy to, I guess maybe the Meiri is talking about these like fears and stuff, is to get caught up in like belief in like evil powers or whatever, But I like Tamar's interpretation better. That's how I would take it. So if we were to take the Mishnah this way, okay, that it is talking about doing things that like taunt the demons, for lack of a better term, right? That like, being awake at night and when you're vulnerable to these demons, or walking alone when you're vulnerable to these demons. Again, that's another thing also, is like when people are just in their own head and in their own thoughts, then like these things come out also, and then did he explain finally Levatala? He was saying that even if you are involved with the Torah, this could be a problem, but certainly if you empty your hearts from Torah. Yeah. Yes. The question is like, what is the idea according to him? And that's the thing, is like, this is why I also don't believe in actual demons, but if you believe that this is talking about actual demons, then what is this doing in Pirkei Avos? Like that, I'm just not sure about that. So I don't have an idea for this. Yeah, Ayala?
Okay, I don't think this really fully answers that question.
Yeah.
But I remember actually, I think Yehoshua saying that, like in New Hampshire,
yeah,
that when he was walking at night and it was like pitch black,
yeah,
he was like, and I've had this experience too, where it's like dark and scary and whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, if I didn't believe in God, then like definitely it would be a time to like call upon these like avodah zarah or whatever, just to like get some security in something.
Yeah, definitely. I've had that feeling also. You see at the Shabbatons walking back.
Yeah. Exactly. So in things like that, like maybe this is saying that like even a person, like a rational person or someone involved in Torah or whatever, you'd be like, obviously I would never like turn to that, like there'd be no way. Right. And like a chassid, whatever. But this is saying that like you have to set yourself up for situations where you won't, because you never, like in situations where you're scared and whatever, then like you may end up getting in that mindset. So don't get in those situations.
Right. That's a good idea. And I think if you took it that way, then maybe, again, this is not how Rבינו Bekius is reading it, but that the remedy is to not be mafana libo levatala, is that if you turn your heart to Torah, then you're going to protect your soul from giving into like these fears and these beliefs, Yeah, Tamar?
So I really like what Ayala was saying. What was I going to say? Okay, I think what you said about mafana libo levatala was not what I thought you were going to say. So the first two are sort of like situations where you might be like thrown off balance a little bit in some way that will cause you to, or your circumstances will cause you to end up like inclining towards avodah zarah or other kinds of false ideas, right?
Yeah.
And the last one,
the Rבינו Bekius was reading it as, he said like all the more so if you turn your heart away, like you're vulnerable to these demons in these situations, and all the more so if you turn your heart away from Torah, which is the ikar, then you'll certainly be endangered. Yeah. Okay. Speaking of being awake at night, I just because of the being awake last night, I just got hit by this wave of like extreme tired. I think I'm gonna end here tonight. We just to quickly review here. Let's just answer these questions according to Sforno, Rבינו Yona, Sforno, Rבינו Yona, and then Meiri. So what does Ner B'Layla mean? So according to Sforno and Rבינו Yona, it either is someone who wakes up in the middle of the night and doesn't use the time, or someone who stays up and squanders the time that could be used for Torah. Okay. What does holech b'derech yichidi mean? It means walking without distraction. And then according to the Meiri, it means staying up all night, right? And that's harmful for your body. Okay. What does holech b'derech yichidi mean? Is when you're walking alone and there's no one to distract you. That's another opportune time. And the Meiri says it's another dangerous time, okay, for physical danger. How do we read Mefana Liba Levatala? That's talking about when you are not using this time for, according to Rבינו Yona and Sforno, when you're not using the time for learning, or according to Sforno, actually, when you're just involved in like nothing, and you're like not doing anything with your life. According to the Meiri, it is talking about, I'm blanking now. Oh, Meiri is the one who says you're not involved in any worldly matter. What does Sforno say? Oh, Sforno said it was turning your mind away from worldly involvements, like when you get a day off. Okay, fine. All right, what does Mishlei Benafsha mean? So according to Rבינו Yona and Sforno, it's you're endangering your soul. You're liable for your soul because you should be using this time to develop your soul, and you're really not. This is a perfect time. And according to Meiri, you're actually endangering your life. Okay. Why is the person Mishlei Benafsha? So we explained that. What is the relationship between the 2 or 3 clauses? Is it an exhaustive list? So it sounds like, according to everyone, this is going to be like examples, maybe categorical examples, but examples of opportune times for learning, and then things that endanger you, even though you're under hashgacha. What's the havmina here? So again, I think that, I know Rבינו Yona and Sforno didn't say this, but what I said before, I think it really is good havmina, is that it's very easy to tell yourself that you value Torah and then not use the golden opportunities that come your way, to do that. And like, I don't think you can tell you might value Torah, but you can't say that you value Torah if you're not using the best times for Torah, and then according to Meiri, might be a havmina that like, oh, I'm involved in something that's for, Torah, Hasidus, so God will protect me, but no, he won't. You have to protect yourself. And then that is answering how the context of Pirkei Avos should shape this. And yeah, I think both of these mishnayos can be applied to any person, but like, this is not necessarily for the average person. Like, I don't think the average person should focus on like, look, get a chavrusa and a regular learning time, or a 10 shiur, then worry about using your spare time late at night or whatever, like do the basics first, I would say. But this does apply to the regular person. The Meiri's advice does apply to the regular person, like to not harm themselves. Yeah, Ayala?
The first idea is reminding me of a "this is water" idea.
Yeah, how?
In terms of like using your time, I don't know. The line that's sticking out to me is like when he talks about like on at the grocery store waiting online or something. Like you get to control your thoughts and like.
Oh yeah, right.
Thinking about Torah.
Yeah, that's a good call. Always good when you could tie into "this is water." Okay, that is it for me for tonight. And let's hope I don't have any Torah learning tonight after this. And again, just to remind you, no shiur Thursday night next week. Those who are gonna attend shiur tomorrow, I know I always think this, but I feel like it's gonna be a short shiur. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. I don't feel like I have a lot, but we'll see what happens. Okay, have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks.